I feel like I shouldn't because of whatever the university. So if some other soldiers who want to stand up and do that kind of work, I think that says a lot to me, and that the action is more important than any words that can be said. Right, so you can get on a microphone and you can say whatever the fuck you want to say, and turn the computer off and never deal with any real life consequences. But when the real life consequences come knocking, and if you're not listening, or you won't even hear the person out because you're so already bought into whatever rhetoric is out there, then you're never going to go the last mile, and you don't have to. Like, you don't have to. We don't need your help. Just don't claim to. Don't make your brand being an anti-black racist if you're not going to do the bare minimum and not tone police, for example. So I just wanted to kind of circle around to what I was talking about in the beginning about the voices of marginalized people being kind of overrun, and kind of what the guy is talking about is interesting in that so the protester who was shot was a white guy, right? And he's talking about however, this guy had a reason to feel fear for his life because he had been threatened before, right? So they're being threatened by this ongoing force, which is repeatedly attacking them and repeatedly, going after them, to where he feels a fear that is so also like internalized and personal, whereas like there's an entire institution that is built up around me and that is kind of pushing down. And whether or not his reaction to that was justified, he was then murdered by the cops, right? So there's this constant threat. There's a small reaction by the person who's being threatened, and then there's this huge force coming down on them. It's almost as if they were instigating this thing to happen. The person got a little bit too aggressive in one way or the other. So, whether this guy was inside of his tent and he was being shot at, so say if that's the case, he's sitting in his tent, there's movement going on outside, he maybe shoots blindly once, and then he gets killed for that. And I just want to, even though he was a white guy, the thing was, or white person, maybe they're saying that they're, I don't know, I heard some things about their gender identity, but I'm not sure how accurate that is. As far as I know, he identifies as he, right? And he was killed for protecting this Black neighborhood, right? And I like to kind of bring up, like, during Reconstruction, from Reconstruction until the 1981, which was the last lynching in America, over 40% of the people who were lynched were white people, right? And every single one of them is documented lynchings. Every single one of them. It wasn't because they did they did a murder. It wasn't because they did. It was because they were protecting a Black person or offering them some kind of assistance in some way, and they had to pay the ultimate price for that, right? And so the issue with racism, and especially with the silencing of Black voices, is not just the voices of the individuals, but it's anyone who is making any kind of statement against the kind of injustices that happen. And you kind of tend to see a pattern where they'll be attacked repeatedly, and then they're waiting for the person of color to do one thing that is even just approaching a defensive mode, and then that's when the hammer comes down, right? And it always comes down on the one side, right? And like I like to think that, particularly when it comes to racism, when someone is pointing something out, at least for me, the goal is never to cancel the person, right? Because if we cancel every person who does something racist, literally all you people would be canceled. Like it doesn't make any sense, right? The thing is, like, you want to make a statement, and you hope that people learn from the statement. And if you're able to make a public statement, and then you can correct the person's the racist person's behavior, that doesn't mean you have to stop engaging with that person. It doesn't mean you have to, okay, now I'm going to stop following them, now I'm never going to look at them again, now oh my gosh, I can't, this person did something. It doesn't make any sense, because a lot of times when that happens, they don't even say anything publicly against them. They refuse to say anything publicly because they're afraid of whatever, they're afraid of this and that, but then they also say, okay, well, I just won't talk to them again. It doesn't make any sense. You don't have to stop talking to racist people. It doesn't make any sense. You would literally not talk to anyone. You simply need to be public and be vocal about what that person is doing. And if that person decides they no longer want to talk to you because you're making a public statement, well, then I guess that's their issue, right? But to do the counter where we're going to ignore the harassment that you're getting. We're going to pretend it's not happening. We're not going to say anything public about it because I'm scared of this, blah, 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 all this bullshit. But then also, I'm not going to ever talk to that person again, and it's your fault because I can't ever talk to that person again, because it doesn't make any sense. None of that makes any sense. And like what they're saying here in this, with this guy who was shot, he just was making a public, that says a lot to me, and that the action is more important than any words that can be said. Right, so you can get on a microphone and you can say whatever the fuck you want to say, and turn the computer off and never deal with any real life consequences. But when the real life consequences come knocking, and if you're not listening, or you won't even hear the person out because you're so already bought into whatever rhetoric is out there, then you're never going to go the last mile, and you don't have to. Like, you don't have to. We don't need your help. Just don't claim to, don't make your brand being an anti-Black racist if you're not going to do the bare minimum and not tone police, for example. Like,